Hello everyone, welcome back to day 2 of Grammar Ready with me. So for today's editing exercise, for full transparency, we're doing a lower sec paper, but that is not to say that there's nothing to be learned from it. Actually, for these lower sec papers, there are a lot of things that we can learn because it helps us to revise some of the grammar rules that we have taken for granted actually, right? So this little article here is taken from a Kids Health kind of magazine or website. So the link, I'll leave it in the YouTube description box as well. Okay, so let's begin. So just to recap, everyone, please remember that for editing, at the express level, we have 10 lines given to you, all right, 1 to 10 here. And out of these 10 lines, 2 of them will have no errors at all. And what do you do when there's no errors at all? You just tick, right? You just put a tick here. You see here, you just do a tick here like this. Okay? So this means that out of these 10 lines, 8 of them will have errors, they will be mistakes. Alright, so let's begin. So this editing exercise is about friendship. Okay, so as I always say at the start of all my videos, whether or not you are familiar or you are a pro at this topic doesn't matter at all. At the end of the day, grammar is about a bunch of rules, and during lessons, I've told you many times that these rules are things that you have to carry with you throughout your life. Okay, and with these rules, you are able to then master grammar. Okay, it's not about vibes, it's not about feelings, it's about rules. All right, so let's begin. True friendship is hard to find, but most of you know it when you see it. Interesting. Okay, so let's begin proper with line 1. What did it take to be a good friend? For some, the defining moments of blah blah blah. Okay, so they're going on to list some of the characteristics or the traits of a good friend. Okay, so at this point in time, something that is a bit suspicious to me would be the word did. All right, I circled it here, the word did. Okay, because I feel that based on my intuition, my feelings alone, I feel that this might be in the wrong tense. So to check and confirm this suspicion that I have, let me look at the sentence before that, the line above it. True friendship is hard to find. So I see some evidence of the present tense here. But most of you know it when you see it, okay? There's some present tense here. So I am led to believe now that my suspicion is correct, that this should be in the present tense instead of the past tense. Reason number 2, why it should be in the present tense instead of the past tense is because these traits, these values, right, these descriptions of a good friend, they are timeless, they are everlasting, right? It's not something that will expire. It's not, okay, so for instance, one important value is trust, right? A good friend is someone whom you can trust. Do you mean that in 2025, this is in the past tense, this is no longer important, trust is no longer important? No. These are values. The value of trust is important throughout history and in the foreseeable future, right? So this is the reason why it should be in the present tense. And for that reason, I'm going to change it to does. What does it take to be a good friend? So far, so good? Okay, let's move on. For some, the defining moments of friendship are profound, okay? So in this case, I am confident that are is okay, is plural, because we're talking about moments here. So nothing wrong with that, I can leave it alone, okay? Such as the soulmate who helps you through a grief of losing a family member. Okay, so grief is just this intense feeling of sadness. Okay, so in case you're not familiar with this word, it's just very, very sad, intense sadness. All right. Okay, so there is a very clear mistake in line 2, which if you are not careful, you might miss. And that is none other than this word here. It's one letter. Helped you through a grief. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this word in grammar, we call this an article. Okay, this is an article. Okay, it's an article. You don't have to know the technicalities of whether this is a definite article or indefinite article, but I suspect you already agree with me that it's a bit strange to say a grief. Okay, last week the reason why I couldn't come to school was because I was going through a grief of losing my dog. That is not the reason why here sounds very weird, right? The reason for this feeling of weirdness is because it's not specific enough, all right? It's not specific enough. Let me just write it down here. It is not a specific enough choice of article. Okay, the author here is really writing about the grief of going through this hospital experience of losing a family member, correct? And we are already aware of what the author is talking about, so it has to be more specific. And when we're using specific articles, what comes to mind is actually this word, the, the. Okay, some of you might also argue that, oh sure, the reason why we should use the, here, it's because of countable versus uncountable, right? Grief, you cannot count one grief, two griefs, three griefs, right? This kind of thing. So that's the reason why we're using the instead of a. I will agree with you as well, but I think the strongest reason why is because of the specificity of it, right? Is simply too general, right? It's simply too general here. We're using the grief. We're referring to, grief as a specific event here of losing a family member or camped out in a hospital room, right? It's already been defined, okay? Okay, so let's move on now to line 3. The grief of losing a family member or camped out in your hospital room when you was sick, okay? Right now, when I'm reading line 3, it seems alright to me. There doesn't seem to be any big problems here. So for now, what do I do when there's no errors? I have to put a tick. Right, I'll do a tick here. All right, let's move on now. Okay. When you was sick, all right, ladies and gentlemen, this is a very big problem. I hope you know why it's wrong. All right, when you was sick, you here always takes the plural verb are or were. Okay. So because this is past tense, it's referring to something that happened in the past, right? So it's recounting an incident, right? So when you were sick, okay. So for others, it's smaller gestures that loom large, okay? The friend who talked for hours, when you're feeling alone, even if it mean going over on his cell phone minutes. For those of you who are simply too young, okay, going over on cell phone minutes just means that in the past, in the good old days, right, before we had Wi-Fi and all these nice data plans, and cheaper telcos such as, I don't know, Gomo or something, Giga as well. We had contracts, and on your phone contracts, there's a limited amount of minutes per month which you can use to call. Right? Maybe 90 minutes, 100 minutes, 200 minutes. The more minutes you have, the more expensive your contract is. Right? So if you go over the minutes in your contract, it's going to be quite expensive. Okay, so that's just a side point. Okay, so the friend who talked for hours when you were feeling alone, you see here, by the way, this is to prove that I was not lying to you, right? Actually, the answer for 4 is given in 5. Can you see that? Hope you can see it, okay? So anyway, line 5's error is over here, even if it mean. Okay, even if it mean. Okay, so we have to ask ourselves here, all right? There's 2 things that might be wrong with mean here. Firstly, because of the word next to it, the subject here, right, IT, it is a singular subject, correct? This is singular. I hope you know this is singular. What does this imply? This implies that this should be means. Option number 2 that I'll give to you is that this could also be in the past tense, which implies that it should be meant. So now we think you cannot do this in your examinations. You cannot give 2 answers separated by a slash. It's either one of these options, right? You have to pick one. So we ask ourselves now, we will look at this sentence properly, starting from this part over here. Should it be in the present tense or the past tense? Okay. So we are actually doing a throwback now. we're throwing back to the past when, you have this good friend who was helping you out, when you were emo, when you were feeling alone. Everything here is actually in the past tense, right? Who talked for hours when you were feeling alone, even if it meant. So in this case, the correct answer should be in the past tense, right? So the correct answer should be meant instead of means, all right? Okay, instead of means. So this is very tricky because they intentionally gave you a plural version of the verb. So there is a subject-verb agreement issue, but the biggest problem is actually the fact that it's in the wrong tense. It's in the present tense instead of the past tense. Okay, let's move on now to line 6. Going over on his cell phone minutes, the one, I've already explained that earlier, the one who helped you to your homework. I don't like this at all. The mistake here is TO2. Okay? If I say that I helped myself to, I don't know, maybe a slice of pizza, what that means is that I took it by myself independently. No one fed me the pizza on a silver plate. I took it by myself with my own hands. I opened the box and everything by myself. So it's kind of like a DIY kind of thing, right? You helped yourself to something. So if you enter maybe your friend's home, right, their mom might say, okay, just help yourself to anything in the fridge. Correct? But are we eating homework here? Are we like is the homework really like a gift to that friend of yours? Is the homework really like a present to that friend of yours? I don't think so, right? So I don't think that you should be saying helping the one who helped you to your homework. It doesn't fit. It doesn't fit here, okay? It doesn't fit here. So actually, the preposition that we're looking for, so let me write down the rule here. The preposition here is completely wrong. So if you can remember from my previous video, day 1 of Grammar Ready with me, prepositions are prepositioning nouns or noun phrases or noun-like structures, correct? So that means the preposition comes before something that resembles a noun, correct? And it shows you the relationship between what comes before the preposition and what comes after the preposition. So in this case, right, in very simple terms, okay, the right preposition here is something that we're all very familiar with. I just gave you the answer actually, right? That was unintentional. It's with, right? So it's something we're familiar with, right? We always say, can you help me with this? Can you help me with that? Correct? So that is the right preposition that helps us to link the action of helping, the friend's action of helping, with the homework. Correct? This shows a relationship here. So help me with this, help me with that. All right? Not help me to this, help me to that. Okay? Okay, let's move on. Hopefully that was not too confusing. Let's move on. Okay, so let's move on now to line 7. Okay, so the one who helped you with your homework, even when she had not done her own. Okay, so at first, it does seem a bit suspicious that the pronoun she was being used, all right, because we didn't define the gender, correct, of this friend. But I realized that her, the second pronoun here, is also being used. And in one line, you can only have one mistake, correct? One error. So I can't change both of them. I can't change it to they and their because that will be correcting two things. So I leave it alone. This might be the stylistic kind of choice by the author, right? So I just leave it alone. So because of that, big or small it is actions. Okay, fine. Because of that, I am willing to say that there's probably no mistakes with line 7. Okay, let me just put a tick here. Okay, so let's move on. Big or small, it is actions that seem to count the most in friendship. Okay, there's an error here, quite straightforward. Let me just circle it first. It's going to be this word here, counts. All right, it's actions. It is actions that seem to count the most in friendship. So this is a subject-verb agreement issue. Okay, the subject here refers to, let me just highlight it in green, actions, correct? This is the subject. And this subject is plural. Because of that, the verb here counts has to be in its plural form as well. So we have to drop the S. All right, we have to drop the S. So this should just be count. Okay, this should just be count, and this is a subject-verb agreement issue. That's quite common at the lower secondary levels. That's why this is a lower sec paper. Okay, that seem to count the most in friendship. In a time when we can chat effortlessly, right? Just pick up your phone and just call someone or WhatsApp or FaceTime. Chat effortlessly by text. Talk is getting cheaper. Okay, so far so good, right? Talk is getting cheaper. Many teens believes that blah blah blah. Okay, there is another mistake here. Many teens believes, okay? I'm going to circle it again. We just talked about this, I think less than 30 seconds ago. This is also a subject-verb agreement issue. Okay, let's highlight the subject here. It's going to be teens. This is the subject. And this is a plural subject, right? It's a plural noun. Teens, right? There's many of them, many teens, okay? So because of that, the verb believes needs to be in its plural form, so we have to drop the S. So this should be just believe, all right? Believe, okay? So many teens believe that the evidence of true friends, okay, is what they do to show their loyal trustworthiness or willingness to make a sacrifice. This is extremely tricky. Okay, there is an error here. I'm very confident because we look at what we have done so far. There are 2 ticks, right? There have been 2 ticks so far, all right, for lines 3 and 7. So I'm very confident that line 10 has some kind of mistake. And it's going to be here. Okay, you might be scratching your heads and thinking, why? What's wrong with loyal, right? We read the whole sentence, right? Never ever stop mid-sentence. We read the whole sentence. Look at this. I'm going to highlight it here in a different color for all of you. Look at this, trustworthiness, willingness. Okay, then we look at our best friend here, loyal. What is the word form? Something that I've been telling you in class. What is the word form here? Noun, adjective, verb, adverb, etc. Trustworthiness is a noun. Okay, it's a noun. Willingness is also a noun. Okay, so technically it's like an object, it's a value, it's something good to have, right? It's a virtue. Loyal is not a noun. Loyal is an adjective. Correct? I would say that my best friend John is very loyal. I'm describing John. I cannot say my best friend John is very trustworthiness, right? Because that is a noun. If I want to describe John using this noun, it has to be transformed into my best friend John is trustworthy. Correct? So how do I then change loyal into a noun so that I can follow these 2 dudes over here? Simple, right? When in doubt, always think about your school values, all right, or some kind of like values that you have learned in the past from reading books, or maybe even your primary school values, correct? Loyalty, correct? Loyalty, correct? So this is the correct version of the word. So this is actually a word form issue. And word form issue in short, sometimes when I mark your scripts, it will be WF. Okay? So with that in mind, ladies and gentlemen, that is the entire paper. If you are a lower sec student and you are watching this video, I would say that I would rate this difficulty perhaps 6 out of 10, 5 out of 10, yeah, around there, 5 to 6 out of 10. If you're Sec 4, Sec 3, and you're doing this paper, it should be a breeze to you. It should be a 3 or 4, maybe even a 2. All right? So with that in mind, thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.